Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Today, we're going to be discussing the four stages of the business cycle, which includes expansion, peak, contraction, and trough. So, hope you guys are ready to hopefully learn something or be refreshed on these concepts. And with that stated, hope you guys enjoy this presentation. The four stages of the business cycle. Here are the table of contents for today. We're going to be discussing what the business cycle is, going over the four different phases, and also how to protect yourself against the recession. First off, let's discuss what the business cycle is. Business cycle is a type of economic cycle which represents a fluctuation in an economy over a period of time. Knowing the business cycle can allow us to make investment decisions and evaluate which stage we are in the economy. If we look at the picture on the y-axis, we have the real GDP. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product, which measures the monetary value of final goods and services produced in a country in a given period of time. Real GDP is GDP adjusted for inflation, and inflation is the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time. And GDP is usually used, you'll see in a lot of journals, because it usually denotes the wealth of a country, but it doesn't account for a lot of factors, which we might talk about in a future video. On the x-axis, we have time, which denotes the progress forward. The straight line is the growth trend line, which denotes that the economy is always moving upwards in the long run. The optimal growth rate trend of real GDP is around 2% of inflation. And although we have a straight line, we're going to see that there's going to be peaks and valleys, and this is what the economic cycle is. Now we can see that there's different phases through the rhythmic pattern of growing and declining. The rising period is called expansion, then we reach the peak, followed by a contraction and a trough. From the trough, we rebound back into growth and the cycle repeats itself. Now let's take a deeper look into each phases. Expansion. The GDP comprises of four things: investment spending, net exports, government spending, and consumption. Now in the US, consumer spending contributed nearly 70% of the US production in 2019, which equates to $13.28 trillion. And now most free markets economies rely on how much consumers spend. So when looking at these peaks and valleys, consumer spending and confidence plays a huge factor into the shapes of the curves. In expansion, we see increases in consumer spending, employment, production, sales and business, and incomes. We would love if our economy expanded all the time, except that the reality is that economy is a byproduct of businesses where things cool, crises occur, and correction also takes place. This takes us to the next phase, which is the peak. And the peak is realized when economy is producing at its maximum output, where demand exceeds supply, where economy begins to enter into an unsustainable growth. And this period, the peak as well as the trough, is only realized in hindsight. In this case, for the peak, however, it could be realized when contraction is set in motion. Now, onto the contraction phase. This is where GDP is going down. This phase is also called the recession, which is specifically defined when GDP declines for 2 consecutive quarters. And if it really gets bad, we enter into a depression. The picture is quite fuzzy, but this area right here, the blue area, that's the depression. This is usually triggered by an event such as a financial crisis where fear and panic replaces consumer confidence. An example of a contraction would be the 2008 housing crisis, where many homeowners were defaulting on their mortgages, having a ripple effect on other areas such as the collapse of the stock market. This down curve is the exact opposite of an expansion, where aggregate demand and spending falls and business profits decline. Thus, consumers lose more jobs and unemployment rises. Investment and prices also fall. Next, we have the trough. This is the lowest point in the economy, and growth must recover here. Confidence must be restored and usually requires intervention from government with the help of monetary or fiscal policy. The National Bureau of Economic Research is in charge of identifying these different time periods of the different time periods of the stages. And between 1945 and 2019, the average expansion has lasted about 65 months, whereas the average recession has lasted about 11 months. This kind of reflects the quote of time in the market beats timing the market. And these averages change depending on the time frame. As from 2009 to 2020, the expansion has lasted a record of 128 months. So, the biggest indicator of analyzing business cycles are inflation, output, consumer spending, interest rates, employment, and wage rates. These can kind of give us a clue on which levels of economic growth we are currently in, as well as the cycles. And now we've discussed the different stages. I now want to discuss what to do in the stage of recession. So, recession is a time of stress and frustration for many, especially for business owners and for the unemployed. And despite the negative effects it has on many citizens, this contraction allows productivity and competitiveness to increase in the market. It corrects misallocation of resources. It also reveals government mismanagement and allows for a restructuring of the production process. So those are some of the positive things, but now we gotta think, how are we going to protect ourselves, to hedge ourselves? The first thing, eliminate high interest debt. As interest rates rises during a recession to slow down the economy, it's super essential that paying off debts should be your number one priority. Second, building up an emergency fund. This could be around 3 to 6 months of expenses and 12 months if you're a business owner. And this is just a rule of thumb. It may vary. Next, we have lowering your expenses. We could cut down our discretionary spending, which is non-essential purchases such as entertainment or like watching movies. Next, make yourself indispensable to your employer and negotiate your wages. As of July 2022, more than 24,000 workers in the US tech sector has been laid off in mass job cuts. Although tech is a small portion of the entire population, this should be a reminder to make yourself indispensable to society. And how do we do this? This is from Warren Buffett himself. By investing in yourself to increase your earning power. If you're the best plumber, the lawyer, surgeon, or any other jobs, you will command a given part of other people's production of goods and services, no matter what the currency is, whether it be seashells or dollars. Whatever it may be, you will get a share of the national economic pie, as well as only if you're able to increase your earning power and almost viewed irreplaceable compared to another person. And last but not least, having cash to take opportunities. Although you can't predict the stock market, you could definitely enter into better buying opportunities. After you've built up an emergency fund and paid off your debts, of course, for defense, having cash is essential for you to play on the offensive side to win the game. Stock market hates uncertainty and speculative investments, so this will be very harmful. So focus on having a share of a wonderful business. For example, consumer staples would be a really profitable business during a recession because people are always going to be out purchasing foods. And this kind of guarantees that you'll get a portion of people's labor if you own a share of a wonderful business. And with that stated, I'd like to end with a quote from Warren Buffett. Opportunities come infrequently. When it rains gold, put out the bucket, not the thimble. And we're back. Hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. And as Warren Buffett kind of educated us, and the best way to increase your earning power is to invest in your learning. I hope you guys continue to build skill sets to remain valuable and to continue to produce or create something, which I think is truly beautiful. To produce something using the mind, using your body, all of it. I think it provides meaning and truly happiness, personally speaking. But I hope you guys gain something from this video. And with that stated, I hope to talk to you guys very soon, alright? Peace.